Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Service IT's second webinar for the month of September. My name is Mivs Paningbatan, and I'm the Marketing Communications Associate of Service IT Plus. Before we get started, I'd like to go over a few items so you'll know how to participate in today's event. Today's webinar is being recorded and will be available for all of our viewers soon after the session. We encourage you to ask questions during the panel discussion via the Q&A panel you can see on your screens. But don't worry, if your questions don't get answered today, you can reach us through our different channels that I will be sharing at the end of today's session. Our webinar today, led by our main speaker all the way from Sydney, Australia, will focus on the importance of cybersecurity and how we, as users from different companies, could avoid the threats of being hacked. But before anything else, we have Ms. Jean Bravo, the Managing Director of Service IT Plus, to explain more on the status of cybersecurity in the country.
Thank you, Mivs, and a pleasant afternoon to all of you who are tuned in to this webinar, co-hosted by Service IT Plus and LogMeIn. Indeed, IT security remains one of the hottest topics in the industry, even more so these days that people from all walks of life have been forced to shift to digital platforms, whether for education, business, finance, logistics, and even healthcare. An alarming research statistics I gathered is that the Philippines is considered as one of the most vulnerable countries when it comes to cyber threats. In 2019, the Philippines ranked 7th as the most attacked country all over the world. A survey conducted in July 2020 examined how Filipinos are protecting their financial information, and this is what they found. 32% of the users use 1 to 5 same passwords across all of their accounts for social media, banking, email, Lazada, Shopee, and other similar online platforms. 29% of these surveyed Filipinos use risky approaches to recall passwords, such as writing them on a notebook. I could definitely relate to this. Can you? Maybe you can click the raise hand button on your screen right now to tell us that you two are doing this, writing your passwords on your notebook. Password requirements, not only for banking systems, but on most apps we use these days, are becoming more complex, and so maintaining and being able to remember all of them is really a pain in the neck. But why do we really need to be concerned about this? While so many industries have shut down or operations have slowed down during the pandemic, hackers have been very, very busy this last few months. The number of cyber attacks in the Philippines are rising. Hackers have taken advantage of the shift to online transactions. Now they are impersonating banks, sending out links redirecting social media users to fake online banking portals to get their login credentials and eventually take over their bank accounts. Large enterprise companies have been targeted as well. A few months ago, a very well-known telco fell victim to hackers. Hacking group Anonymous Philippines took over their broadband customer service account on Twitter and started posting tweets criticizing their quality of service. Although the breach did not affect the network services, it serves as another example as to why password management must be taken seriously by all businesses in the country. All these issues boil down to one main problem: poor password management. This is why at Service IT Plus, we have taken initiatives to spread awareness on this issue, informing businesses in the country how to prevent these threats and help other end users secure their logins. We've recently partnered with LogMeIn to help unlock potential of the modern workforce by making it possible for millions of people and businesses around the globe to do their best work simply and securely on any device from any location and at any time. And fresh from the press, as of September 14, 2020, LogMeIn announced that LastPass, its industry-leading password management and identity solution, has reached a great milestone: 25 million LastPass users around the globe. Congratulations, LastPass. And today, we are joined by Jitesh Gopan, solutions consultant, who will take us through how businesses can improve their cybersecurity posture and employee productivity by leveraging LastPass password management solutions. Good day, Jitesh. How are you?
Thanks, Jim. Thanks for having me here. Very good. Very happy to be here today talking to your audience. How are you doing?
I'm good and great to have you here in this webinar. We're very excited to hear how LastPass can better secure our digital lives. So I'll give the floor over to you now.
Thank you, Jean. I was excited to hear. It's not exciting, but it is interesting to hear some of the statistics from the Philippines. And I can tell you from my experience working with businesses all over the world that it is a common problem that we see across all the businesses in different regions. So I just wanted to start off with one of the trends that we see among many businesses everywhere in the world. So in order to secure the accounts and information and systems, businesses, we see that businesses tend to invest a lot of money on tools and technology to protect them. For example, by having firewalls, encryption, antivirus software, and everything. But one of the things that is often overseen is the human error. So if you have invested so much into the different tools and technology, the humans, the employees in your organization can be the weakest link in the chain of security. And that is exactly what Jean meant by poor password behavior. And this has always been a problem. But if you think about what's happening after the pandemic happened, so we are seeing a lot of different attacks, some of which Jean already cited that happened in the Philippines after COVID started, particularly phishing attacks, especially targeted towards financial institutions, where attackers try to get passwords of individual users or employees. And that we have seen that the phishing attempts has gone up by 350% due to COVID. Because things are changing, people are working from home, they have a lot of questions and confusion. This is a good time for attackers to leverage and execute a successful attack. So how do we address this? How do we address the password behavior problem? How do we solve this and have better password hygiene? The best solution for that, which I would assume many of you might already be using, is single sign-on. So that is a great solution where you have one single password to log into all of the different cloud applications or some of the other applications as well. But if you think about it, that does not cover all of the applications that you use within an organization. So we've seen that it might cover 20 to 70% of the applications you use, but there are certain other applications like legacy applications that are not yet secured with single sign-on. Some of the businesses also use something called privileged access management, or PAM, to provide privileged access to certain privileged users to critical systems such as databases, devices, or service. Just like I explained, we are addressing the security requirements for a subset of users who are the technical users or the IT teams. But that does not protect all the regular users, all the normal day-to-day users in your marketing team, finance team, and so on. So that is where there is a gap. Even if you have single sign-on and privileged access management, that is where there is a gap. I have a question there, Jane.
Yes, some people would say that they don't really need another password management solution if they have single sign-on or privileged access management. How does LastPass differentiate? And maybe you can cite an example use case for us.
Yes, absolutely. We also hear that from many customers, and also this is a misconception that They do have single sign-on, they do have privileged access management. Why should we care about password management? But as I said, the problem, these are great solutions, but specific for a certain use case. If you look at single sign-on, yes, it can provide a passwordless or single password experience to many applications, mostly cloud. But there are several applications that many businesses that we know are using that cannot connect with SSO, that does not support SSO. The question is, how do we protect those applications, right? When it comes to privileged access management, we are talking about securing access for privileged users, IT managers, technical people. But that does not protect all the other regular employees in the organization. So how do you address the security of those users? Or as you understand, it is risky to leave that surface at risk. And even if you have PAM or SSO, you're putting your business at risk by leaving that surface. That is the gap an enterprise password manager can bridge. So even if you use passwords for many of your accounts or websites or web apps, as a password manager like LastPass can remember all of those passwords for you. And then all you have to remember at the end of the day is one master password, or the one last password that you will ever have to remember, and giving you a pretty much SSO-like experience to all your legacy and other applications.
Thank you.
Okay, so that is exactly where LastPass can help. One, we can provide you single sign-on solution. So a lot of businesses leverage LastPass single sign-on to provide the SSO experience. And also, we are the industry leader in enterprise password management, where we have, like Jean mentioned earlier, 25 million personal and work users. And also, we can provide multi-factor authentication, which is biometric based, which is adding, in addition to passwords, you can add another layer of security by bringing in a second factor of authentication, or third or fourth factors, by considering geolocation, biometrics of the users, time of the day, and other contextual factors. There is an interesting statistic. Why people understand this is a problem. People understand passwords they need to have a good password hygiene. But there is a contradiction that we see between what people say and what people do. This is based on our research and survey that we have done. 91% of the people say they know that using the same password or the similar pattern of password puts their accounts at risk. But at the same time, while they say so, 66% of them, when they're signing up or resetting a password, use the same password or a simple variation of the same password. Similarly, 80% of the people know or say that they understand if one of their passwords or accounts are compromised. That is something they are concerned about. But at the same time, one important thing they have to do to avoid it is to change their password regularly to secure it. And 48% of the people do not do that until they are forced to do so. And 77% of the people understand what password hygiene or good password habits are. It's not that they do not understand it, but again, 54% of them try to remember the passwords, try to manage these passwords manually. And that is where the problem is. So as humans, there is only so much we can remember. We have so many things to remember in our busy lives, and we cannot add 10 or 50 complex passwords into the list. That is why we end up forgetting the password and using the reset password option, or reach out to your IT managers to reset your passwords for you, where you will lose your productivity because you are locked out of the necessary applications that you need to use to get your work done. How do we address this? So we've been talking about what the problem is, why we should address it. How do we address it? That is by providing an easy way to manage passwords for all of your users. I'm not talking about technical users, including the regular users. LastPass can offer an easy way to manage passwords in a vault. And we know people are working from different places, different devices, different operating systems, different browsers. LastPass is available on all major browsers and even mobile devices, including iOS and Android. So wherever you are, whatever device you are using, you will still have access to your password without having to worry about remembering any of them. Now, the biggest thing for the most important thing for your employees is to make their life easier every single day. One, without having to remember different passwords. Two, making it easier for them to log into the different accounts that they need to do every single day. LastPass can automatically fill in the passwords so that they can sign in just in the click of a button. So making it faster for them to log into the different applications. I see, looks like Jean, you have a question there. You came up on camera.
Well, I don't really have a question. I just want to say that these features that you mentioned, I think they're particularly helpful to IT managers and administrators.
That's absolutely right. Everything I talked about now is about helping the end users. But what isn't it there for IT managers? The biggest benefit you get, if you think about users not having to remember their passwords, the employees are gonna use LastPass and LastPass remembers all their passwords. The chances of them forgetting their passwords are nil. So you know where I'm going. So this is gonna make your life easier. Think about how much time you spend helping your employees to reset their password when they forget a password. So that time that you spend on it can be completely avoided because LastPass will remember all of their passwords and users will not come back to you asking you to reset their passwords. That's one major benefit. The second thing, when I talk to IT administrators or managers across the world, I hear that a common problem they talk about, shadow IT, which means employees are using several applications or websites that are not provided or verified by IT. But there is not something they can do to avoid that because that's going to affect their productivity. And there is a practical infeasibility when it comes to forcing them or blocking those applications because they don't know what applications or websites are being used. So how can we help that? The key thing there, from a security perspective, is to have visibility into what applications or what accounts or websites are being used by these employees. And that is something LastPass can provide while making sure, even though the applications or websites are not offered by IT, we can ensure that the users are accessing it securely using secure passwords. So LastPass provides you with an admin dashboard where you can manage your users, groups within the organization. And of course, if you want to leverage the single sign-on capabilities of LastPass, you can connect to 1,200 plus applications out of the box in a few minutes to offer single sign-on to all of your users. Then even more important is the policies and reporting, the level of control and visibility you get in terms of deciding how your users or employees use LastPass. Whether, for example, in a financial institution, you can enforce geolocation-based restrictions. They should be able to access it from the city or from a country alone, or they should be able to access it from the corporate network only, right? Or users should be able to access their passwords only from 9 to 5 or the working hours. So those level of granular control is what you get as IT administrators to ensure better password behavior. And then you can keep track of the password behavior or how good the passwords are using the reporting capabilities. I think with that, rather than talking too much about it, it'll be a good idea to show you how that looks from a user's perspective, how it makes it easier for users to log into the different accounts, how LastPass remembers their passwords for them, make them more productive, and also how it protects users against phishing attacks. And finally, there are situations where users need to share passwords between other users or different teams. How can we do that in a much more secure and streamlined manner? So for that, I'm going to give you an example of a scenario where I log into a website using LastPass. First of all, as I said earlier, LastPass is available on all major browsers. In this example, I'm using Chrome. I've logged into the LastPass extension, which IT can automatically install on users' computers. When I log in, as I said earlier, I'll be using my email address and my master password, which is the last password that I will ever have to remember. Once I'm logged in, I might be accessing 50 or 100 plus different websites and applications. For none of them, I will ever have to remember the password. For example, on Trello.com, which is something I use at work, if I have to log in, I don't remember my password, and you can see LastPass is offering to fill in the password. LastPass remembers my username and password for this account. I can click on it. However long the password may be, LastPass remembers and fills it for me. All I have to do is to click login, and I have access to my account. Right? That is very faster, and I don't have to worry about remembering it. Similarly, when you're signing up for an account, one of the important things you need to do is to ensure that you come up with a really complex password. But without a password manager, you cannot do that because you are not going to be able to remember that complex password. But here, LastPass will offer to generate a complex and random password, which I can simply select to use with this account. And as you see on the top right, immediately LastPass offers to save this credential for me. If I click on add, LastPass will remember this password for me. And the next time I try to log into Trello, I don't have to worry about it. LastPass will fill the password. So that is how it makes it easier for you to let LastPass remember your password, store passwords in it, and makes it easier for you to log in. Now, we talked about phishing attacks and how dangerous that can be for businesses. How can a password manager like LastPass protect you against those phishing attacks? So I have a Dropbox account. I have 5 different Dropbox accounts. If I go to Dropbox login page, I can use LastPass to fill in any of those passwords, any of those accounts that LastPass remembers. I don't know the password for any of them. Now imagine I got an email, or you get an email from Dropbox today morning, which says, hey, we are offering you 2000 GB of free storage. All you have to do is to click on this link and activate this offer. Okay, you click on that link because the email appears to be from Dropbox, and you land on this page, which looks exactly like Dropbox. But what you see is, as you don't remember the password, and you're going to rely completely on LastPass to fill in the password. But here, LastPass is not offering to fill in any password. It is saying no passwords found for this website. Some of you might have already figured it out why this is happening. That is because even though the website looks exactly like Dropbox, even though the URL has Dropbox in it, this is not the legitimate Dropbox website. And LastPass identifies that because you don't have to. LastPass automatically makes sure that before offering to fill in any password, it ensures that you are on the legitimate website. And this is a very simple and effective way to protect your users against phishing attacks, because it all boils down to the fact that you might remember the password and you unknowingly provide the password to the attacker. In this case, as you don't remember the password and LastPass is not filling in the password, there is no chance you will fall for this phishing attack. Now, all of the passwords that you store in the vault, stored in LastPass, is accessible to you via the vault. So that is where you can see all of the passwords. You can manage, if you have 50 or 100 passwords, you can manage all of them logically into different folders, so it is easier for you to access. For example, email accounts, business accounts, executive access, finance accounts, and so on. Now, once you have so many passwords in LastPass, the next thing you need to do to improve the password behavior and also protect your business against attacks, or mitigate the risk for your business by protecting your accounts, is to identify how good your passwords are. For that, you can access the security dashboard within your vault, and LastPass will analyze all of your passwords that you have stored in your vault to see if you have any weak passwords, if you have any compromised passwords, or if you have any reused passwords, and summarizes all of these information into a single score, which is the security score. So you can just keep track of this security score to identify how good your passwords are or whether you need any improvement. So in this account, I have 88.5% of security score, which is good, but there is something I can improve to make it 100%, and I can identify them. What are the passwords that are at risk? LastPass analyzes them and displays it. I can see what passwords are weak, reused, or old. And then once I know that, all I have to do is, for example, for this ServiceNow account, all I have to do is to click on change password, LastPass will take me to ServiceNow login page, fill in my password, logs into ServiceNow, and then I can use LastPass password generator to change it to a complex and random password so my accounts are secure. And once you do that, you can see your security score going up, making sure that all of your accounts are secure. And also, from an admin perspective, you will be able to see how good the password security score are for all of your employees. I want to pause there and see if there are any questions coming in.
Yes, this may be something new to our attendees, also something new to me. Can you tell us about the dark web? I see a monitoring feature there, and how does it help IT security teams?
That is a very good question. And that is one of the interesting things that when a breach happens, the information the attackers get are not just being used by them. They sell that information on dark web before the rest of the world even knows about that breach. So what LastPass does is, to protect your business, to protect your users, we proactively monitor the dark web to see if any of your accounts have been part of a breach that is sold or published on dark web. And as and when we see one of your accounts in the dark web, we will immediately alert the user via email, asking them to reset the password. So by the time the attackers get your password, you have changed it to a better password, and you can ensure that your business or your accounts are completely secure. So from an IT administrator's perspective, as I said, this is also considered when we determine the security challenge score. And then as an administrator, I can see how good the security challenge scores or security of all my users are.
Well, that's really good. Very proactive way of watching out for a data breach around the globe, and being able to respond accordingly is what's most important, right?
Yeah, absolutely. All the breaches that you cited in the beginning of your presentation, we don't know where the information went. We don't know how many attackers or malicious parties have that information at the moment. So we don't have any visibility into whether we are part of that breach, right? That is exactly what you get out of this.
I was just saying that with GDPR and DPA, if you have stolen information, you don't really know where it goes, right? So if you have these tools in place and the monitoring that allows you to see, how vulnerable you are, it would be very, very useful.
Absolutely. Thanks for that. Okay, I think with that, the final scenario I want to show is, some of you might be thinking, oh, that is not really something we want to encourage users to do. What I'm talking about is sharing passwords between users or to different teams. Yes, we don't want users to share their email accounts or different accounts, but there are scenarios or situations where we actually want them to be able to share it. Think about one of your marketing teams where they have a marketing tool for which they have limited licenses. They want to be able to share that license or account with multiple users in the marketing team. Similarly, within an IT team, if you have to share the password or credentials to a database, right? Or if you want to share any API keys or SSH keys, how can you share it securely with your team? The way businesses we know do it these days is by sending it via email or Slack or Microsoft Teams, or maybe putting it in a Word document or Excel sheet and passing it on via email. All of those are not secure because we do not know who this information gets forwarded to, who actually ends up getting that information. LastPass can help you secure and streamline the sharing. One, to improve the security, to ensure people who get access are the people who want to get access. Two, to make it faster and easier to control the sharing. And also, from an IT administrator, you also need to have visibility into what is being shared. With LastPass, you can share all of the individual passwords or any of the individual passwords or any folders that contains multiple passwords to any individual user or any teams in your organization. For example, I have so many different accounts for the accounting team, in an accounting folder, and I want to share these passwords to accounting team, analytics team, and some other individuals as well. You are able to search for all of your different teams, like marketing team, billing team, and also individual users in your organization, and then be able to share this password with them. Now, not just that, when you share it, you might want to give different level of access to these different teams or users. You are able to control that. If you want the accounting team to be able to modify the password or add new passwords to this folder, you can make them an administrator. Or if you just want them to be able to view and read the password, you can make it read only. Or if you want them to just log in, but you don't really want them to see the password, then you can hide the password, and LastPass will not allow users to see that password, but they will still be able to access that account. So the whole idea is to make it more streamlined and secure to share passwords within the organization between different teams. I think with that, I will pause for more questions coming from the audience or anyone who is attending.
Yes, before we take the audience questions, Jitesh, I have a couple of questions if you don't mind. So as I mentioned, news I've gathered from the last few months, users have been victims of phishing attacks, right? Fake online banking websites stealing their information. What do you think the finance industry should do? How should they react to this? And what can be done from the customers, from the end user side to prevent such scams?
It is interesting that you cited finance as an example, because even though the problem we are talking about is common to every single industry, when it comes to finance industry, you're holding much more sensitive information. And the danger that an attacker can do once they get access to one of those systems is much more than any other organization, because from the end user perspective, if for via their accounts, anyone can have access to their financials, their life savings. More importantly, from an employee perspective in a financial institution, they have access to sensitive financial information of so many of their customers. So there is a requirement to protect both of them, not just the end users and also the employees. Yes, like I discussed earlier, we can have tools and technology to do that, but what is more important is awareness and education, especially with the end users or customers. You cannot control what they use. You cannot control their password behavior. When it comes to protecting them, it is about giving them awareness or education about the phishing attacks. So how do we let them know what to look for before you provide an information, what to do to identify a phishing attempt? For this context, let's talk more about how to protect our employees who holds even more sensitive information. That is where password hygiene or password management is really important. We want to ensure that every single employee who has access to this sensitive information has a good password hygiene. We discussed that it's not possible for users to do it manually. In financial industry, you're dealing with a lot of information. How do you remember passwords? That is where a password manager can help. And of course, to improve awareness, users should know why they should use a password manager. The next thing, the second step, is to ensure you use a multi-factor authentication, preferably one that has biometrics and has geolocation-based controls, time-based controls, network-based controls, and all of those controls in place to protect and ensure that the right person is accessing the right information at the right place. So along with better password hygiene and multi-factor authentication, it will protect you, because even if the attacker gets access to the password of an employee, that alone is not enough unless they pass the multi-factor.
Right, thank you. I agree. I mean, you know what, no matter how good your technology is, if it will boil down to people being well aware and educated about the threats. And as you mentioned, multi-factor authentication, I believe a company called LogMeIn has a multi-factor authentication solution as well. So do let us know if any one of you needs a multi-factor authentication solution. We'll be happy to help you with that. Another question, Jitesh. I'm too salesy, right? The work from home setup, has accelerated the use of new cloud applications and new ways of working. For some, it's the adjustment is easy. I'm used to it. A lot of people are used to it, but many people are not used to cloud, working in the cloud, and all these work from home adjustments that we need to take. If IT wants to implement LastPass, how can we help? How can we help them in the adoption of their end users and employees? What does the IT manager have to say to their end users?
I can see that you're thinking ahead rather than just providing them, ensuring that the users make use of it and you get the final results, which is a great way of thinking. Absolutely. That is something is also important than just providing the tool. When working from home situation happened, we provided them with remote control tools, video conferencing tools, all of them they have to make use of. They have to get familiar with a lot of things. The first question, when you introduce something to an end user or an employee, that they are going to ask is, what is in it for me? Why should I care? They started using video conferencing because there is no other way for them to talk to their customers or talk to their colleagues, right? So similarly, when you introduce LastPass, you need to make them aware why they should use it, what benefit they have, not the benefit that IT has, what benefit the end users have. So one of the key reasons they will start using it is it improves their productivity, makes their life easier, and they are never going to get locked out of one of their important systems that will prevent them from being able to do their work. So if you tell them you don't have to worry about being locked out of one of your accounts, you'll never forget your passwords. From today, we're not going to ask you to remember so many passwords. You only have to remember one password. That is what is in it for them. And of course, that also makes sure that they get the understanding that they are not putting their business at risk. They are doing their part as a good corporate citizen to ensure your business is secure.
Right. Thank you. I think that communicating it in such a way that you tell them WIIFM, what's in it for them, really would help them adapt easily, and letting them know that it's not that difficult. And if they adapt, it's going to make their lives easier. It's going to make their digital assets and identities much more secure. Thank you so much, Jitesh. I'm going to pass the floor to Mivs. I believe we have some questions from the audience as well. Back to you, Mivs.
You're right, Ms. Jean. We actually have interesting questions from our audience for Jitesh. And the first one is, how much is the cost of investment in LastPass? Is this something that you need to maintain by the IT admin on a monthly basis, or a one-time investment to get security of the data?
Okay, good question. I don't want to talk about the numbers, but I can tell you that it is a one-time, it's a regular investment, but it is a cloud-based solution. You don't have to maintain your servers or anything in order to be able to run that. It depends on how many users you have, how much you want to secure. You get a subscription-based licensing, and Jim and your team will be able to help your customers with that. I know that there is something exciting for all of you when you talk to Jane, so I will leave it to the team.
Yeah, I was going to say, just take note of the name, the contact number, email address. We'll get in touch with them right away.
Thanks.
Okay, so next question for Jitesh. I think this was explained earlier, but it's good to have a recap. Hypothetically speaking, they already have the app. They would like to know if the passwords are stored in LastPass or on their devices. Like, would they need to be connected to the internet to access their passwords?
That is a good question from a usability perspective. Both, I would say both. LastPass keeps or stores all of your passwords in an encrypted form. But I wanted to say that because LastPass even cannot see what passwords you have. But we store them in the cloud so that even if you change your device, even if you switch from your work device to your personal computer, you will be able to access all of your passwords on all these accounts as long as you are able to authenticate to that. And the other question is, whether they will be able to access it offline. If we store it in the cloud, how do I access if I don't have internet connection? For example, if you're traveling, if you're on an airplane. I know it does not happen these days, but when world goes back to normal and if you're traveling, you might want to access some of your passwords. Yes, you can still access them offline. You don't have to be always connected to the internet to be able to use your passwords.
That makes LastPass really accessible. Like, imagine having access to your passwords no matter where you are. That is such a convenience. Yeah. And in my opinion, convenience is something you should always consider when you're trying out new apps. So thank you for that. Yeah. Moving on to our next question. I believe this is more technical. One of our viewers asked if we can enforce the password complexity to our users and the frequency of password change as well.
That's a great behavior to enforce, and like a lot of businesses are doing. So with LastPass master password, which is the last password that you have to remember, and you don't want users to have a simple password for that. So you can ensure that LastPass enforces a complexity level or specific constraints about what characters to have, what length to have for these master passwords. And also, in addition to that, you can enforce users to change them repeatedly, regularly, at regular intervals, which is also a good password behavior. That is possible. Now, if we talk about the passwords that the users store within the vault, of course, these password complexities are managed by the applications themselves, right? For example, ServiceNow or Salesforce, they determine what complexity they need. But what we can do from a password manager perspective is to ensure that they have complex enough passwords for all of them. First, by having visibility into how good the passwords are from an admin perspective. Two, encouraging the use of password generator. LastPass password generator will always generate a complex and random password for those websites. So combining both of these, you'll be able to ensure that there is a good level of complexity of passwords.
You know what? Before this, I never really thought about the importance of having strong passwords, and I always prefer the ones I'll remember easier. But it's good to know that we have apps like LastPass that don't just keep our passwords, but remind us to have strong ones as well. So yeah, that's great. That's a great app. Moving on to the last question. I'm pretty sure this is something everyone can relate to. We can all see how important and helpful LastPass is when it comes to business. And knowing that we have a lot of our own personal accounts, I would like to ask if it's available for personal use as well.
Good question. Yes, absolutely. If anyone has gone to, or if you go to the LastPass website now, you will see there is a free version of LastPass that you can use personally. And there is a premium version that has more premium features, and there are family plans that you can use to protect your entire family. And that is what Jean mentioned earlier, that we have 25 million users who use free and personal accounts. Again, if you were talking about user adoption, think about those users who never got any training. They just signed up and they started using it. They improve their password behavior. So yes, personal account is available. You can use the personal account for personal passwords, which is something we encourage as well for a better password behavior. We cannot really change the behavior only at work and have a different behavior personally. So we want to improve both. So yes, you can have a personal account and then your work enterprise account. Then you can even also connect both of them together, so you will be able to access both at the same place. So I encourage everyone to check out the website and have a taste of LastPass. You can just take a free version or free trial of an enterprise. You can do that. Over to you, Miss.
It's actually good to know. Forgetting passwords is such a common problem nowadays, and I would like to ask if we can also access it using our phone. Like, is it available on the App Store or the Google Store for the Android users?
Absolutely. On iOS App Store and Google Play Store, search for LastPass, you can find it. And with your free account or the enterprise account, you will be able to log in and access it everywhere.
We'll download it after the webinar. So I guess we have answered all of the questions. So Ms. Jean, do you have anything else to say to our audience?
Well, before I say adios and thank you so much to our attendees of this webinar, I just would like to wrap up with some of my thoughts I gathered from the presentation from Jitesh. As we've said earlier, one way of minimizing risks and threats of cybersecurity is to start with an effective password management, right? And we've learned from Jitesh's presentation that most people resort to weak or reused, recycled passwords because of fear of forgetting, right? Like you've said earlier, Mibs, you just don't want to keep forgetting it. So you resort to the easier ones. LastPass then makes your logins easy and secure by simplifying the process of setting complex passwords and not having to remember them yourself. And LastPass also makes sharing of credentials. I took note of that because a lot of organizations who have enterprise solutions with expensive user license would like to share credentials and passwords streamlined and secure across the enterprise. So therefore, reducing the costs, which is primary right now in most organizations. They want to reduce costs and reduce risk. And two words that I will remember from today's session from Jitesh, two things that are very much possible with LastPass. It's effortless and you can go passwordless. And if you guys would like to know more about how to make this possible for your teams and organization, do let us know. Our team will be happy to help you. We can book a deep dive presentation or demo of the product. You can also get a free trial of LastPass Enterprise. And you can call or discuss with our account managers, email us, and we would be happy to assist you all throughout. And really, on behalf of Service IT Plus team, I would like to thank our speaker, Jitesh, for sharing your time and expertise with us today. And I look forward to another webinar event with you in the near future. And again, everyone, thank you so much for sitting into this webinar. We hope to see you again in our future events. Mibs, over to you.
So to wrap it all up, thank you again, Jitesh and Miss Jean, and thank you everyone for attending today's webinar. Once you leave, you will be receiving a follow-up email within 24 to 48 hours with a link to view a recording of today's webinar. If you have any other questions, please visit our website, www.serviceitplus.com, and you can reach us via our different social media channels on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and also watch our previous webinars on our YouTube channel. Stay tuned for our upcoming webinars and so much more. And on behalf of Service IT Plus and our presenter all the way from Logmein in Australia, we thank you again for joining us, giving your time, and we look forward to seeing you at future webinar events. Until next time, stay safe and have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, Jean. Thanks, Mibs, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.